Thank you so much for joining us. We're talking about South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's response to 2 days of debate on his State of the Nation address, and of course this time focusing on business, in which he said, "We do not agree that by recognizing the role of business in creating employment that we diminish the central role of the state in coordinating, planning and guiding the development of the economy." We back again with Economist Owen Nkomo to talk about what the president was saying. And Owen, I was saying there have been some who have criticized the president for saying this. We'll be speaking to SAFTU Labour Union, which is among those. But as we're trying to connect with you, you were saying your view is that you've become increasingly grateful for the clarification on the role of business. Am I correct?
Yeah, so look, I mean, I've always maintained, and I think up to as late as last week, before the president delivered his speech, I have said that it's not the government's job to create jobs. The government's role is to make sure the environment under which entrepreneurs and business people operate is conducive for the creation of opportunities and the execution of opportunities and the expansion of those opportunities, such that they'll end up employing a lot more people. It is private sector's role to make sure they come up with these nice ideas, but government needs to step in and meet the guys halfway, meet us halfway and say, okay, you're looking for capital, here it is. You're looking for land, here it is. You're looking for concessions on rent. You're looking for concessions on a few things. We'll provide those for you. That's what government is supposed to do. And on the issue of SOEs, we know how inefficiently the government allocates capital. I promise you that the bulk of the SOEs out there should not be having as many people as they have in their payrolls. And, you know, the ballooning government wage bill is a big problem in the country. I think there needs to be a transfer of some of the responsibilities to the private sector, so the private sector can operate those things more efficiently and create the right jobs at the right salaries for the right productivity for the sake of the country's tax base and GDP growth. But overall, I'm happy that the president has...
I wonder, Owen, that for those who are listening to a president, and while we understand the role of a capable state is to do that, create an enabling environment for jobs to flourish. But if he is then continually reminding us as the public that 2/3 of the jobs that are created are from the public sector, and he mentions SOEs and continually promises that what government is investing in creates a lot more job opportunities, is there then not an expectation that a government that is capable of ensuring the welfare of its populace would then do this? Are there mixed messages here?
No, I don't think it's a mixed message. We'll understand how state-owned enterprises work. They operate without the need to create profit, but at the same time, I don't think it means that you just grow the public sector wage bill unnecessarily. But like the president said, over 80% of people that are employed out there, are employed in the private sector, and particularly by small business, Sabiso, like I've always said. So I therefore think the more of a better environment you create for small businesses, the better. Certainly, the government does employ the highest number of people outside of the private sector. But a question that we must ask is, yes, it's a good thing, but is that economic? Is that production friendly? I think therein lies the rub. Some of this capital being used by government in the state-owned enterprises, for example, I do believe there needs to be a realignment of the head count there, and maybe to transfer some of that cash from the previous wage bill to the private sector in an efficient way to allow the private sector to have enough incentives to create jobs. It's easier for a private company to sit in a 3-hour meeting and come out with resolutions, but that same meeting will take government 3 months for resolutions to be made. So you take your pick. Who's going to create more jobs quicker?
Well, I'm going to talk to SAFTU in just a moment, which, by the way, disagrees with that sentiment, saying that the private sector has been responsible for shedding of a phenomenal amount of jobs, of stagnation in the employment sector. But let's go back to what the president has said. He was saying that China is a good example of mixed economic growth, and he noted how their private sector currently employs, or rather our private sector currently employs about some 3/4 of South Africa and accounts for 2/3 of investment, research and development expenditure. Now, he went on to say, as the government, and I'm wondering here if he speaks about the governing party, that they're very clear about the kind of policies that they have been pursuing, RDP, NDP, GEAR, which, as you know, have come under immense criticism for being neoliberal in their nature. The president, by comparing South Africa and China, almost suggesting where we're going, is this indicative of an ideological shift in how we're going to build back better?
So the best answer I can give is that for me, actions will always speak louder than words. The president writes very nice speeches. He has very good ideas. But I think that the important thing is for the president to execute. All of these things he's promised us are great. But if you can't wake up tomorrow or over the next 2 months and say, okay, based on my speech, which I gave you guys on the 16th, I've created this fund, and this fund is going to work this way. These are the institutions that are going to administrate this fund so that small businesses and business in general, particularly black business, because we suffer from the lack of access to capital. If it doesn't give us that access to capital, I don't believe that he will be changing anything. If it doesn't bring about the change in the labor environment through working with the labor unions as well, to say, guys, let's try maybe and be a little bit more flexible without necessarily hurting the employees. This is what we could unlock in terms of jobs being created. I think the president won't achieve what he's trying to achieve without actually acting. Words are beautiful, speeches are great, but actions, geez, they're more satisfactory.
Where has then government fallen short, especially if for instance, he says that South Africa is not alone in seeking to rapidly expand our productive capacity by unleashing the potential of the private sector. I know many businesses, particularly small to medium enterprises, that are still complaining about the continual red tape that makes it difficult. And over the past couple of months with COVID-19 and the various rescue funds that have been put in place, I don't know if they would be singing from the same song sheet.
Yeah, so look, I mean, I really think that, the government has become undone in the sense that they are conflicted. If they were to do the things they need to do with the public sector wage bill, or with the public sector numbers, and if they had to do what they need to do with the government wage bill and the state-owned enterprises in terms of realigning those so that we don't have too many people employed there, but those skills get transferred to the custody of the private sector. Obviously, I'm not saying they should blindly do that. If they could just do those things, I do believe that they could unlock a lot of opportunities, Zapiso. You spoke about all those government economic transition plans that we've had. We had a plan that was thrown out, that was suggested by Tito Mboweni without even suggesting new ideas. This, for me, is the reason I don't believe that we will implement on these things. The fact that we keep putting money aside as a jobs fund and the president doesn't come back to us and say, guys, by the way, the jobs fund that I gave 10 billion or whatever the number is created this number of jobs. I believe it's a problem. No accountability is a problem. They keep promising 1 million jobs, 2 million jobs, 800,000 jobs, but no one ever goes back and says, guys, we said 800,000, but we fell short of 700,000 and why? Or we fell short of 100,000 and this is why. And they're not going back and backtracking to see if there's things that need to be fixed. And I say this, and I know the fact that, like I said earlier, it's easy to say you will do something, but if you do not do it, it makes absolutely no difference. And you spoke of the unions. The unions have a very big role to play here. There's need to be to sort of educate people about the need to find the right balance between the private sector and their profitability concerns, and at the same time with educating people about economic cycles. You can't be forced to keep 50 people on the job, whereas your order book has declined by 30%. How are you going to sustain that company to be able to make sure that post a recession or post an economic decline, you'll be able to come back? So I do hope that all parties will continue to step to the plate, including the private sector, sitting on capital, create an opportunity and an environment that says, if the government opens up the floodgates, you will go and invest. So today's episode, just one last point. As an example, I sat with a small entrepreneur who does work for a parastatal. They have not been paid for 6 months. And the people on the other side are just passing the buck around, not making payments, but he has delivered on the work. And this is why I do believe that the role that Mr. Sipho has been asked to do by the government, if it does succeed in it, it can create the sort of live examples we have seen the Tshwane municipality doing this past week. We need to act. We need to make people account. Otherwise, we are changing nothing.
And Owen, you touched on a very important point, because there was a time government committed that 30 days will not pass if suppliers have not been paid and the job is done. And still it persists. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Much appreciated. Economist and CEO of Inkunzi Wealth, Owen Nkomo.